Roadkill by the numbers. 2 buddies, 426 Hemi, 4 speeds, and Dana 60. We're building it out of the junkyard.
Hemi Belvedere.
We are back at Performance Auto in Burlington, Wyoming, and we're gonna build a Hemi Belvedere in the boneyard.
I've never been here. I've never seen this car. The thing is almost like brand new.
Yeah, it really is. And
crazy.
so's that one over there. They got another Belvedere since the last time I was here. This junkyard, or actually like personal collection, is basically a Mopar specialist. They have a whole bunch of project vehicles here. That's what this one was. It's a 69 Plymouth Belvedere, no engine, no trans, and I brought parts, which I'll fill you in on, to make this thing great. And I'm gonna need both these guys' help because we've got 5 days and we're gonna replace every nut and bolt in the whole drivetrain. Fortunately, they cleared the shop for us, so you wanna help me push it in?
It's my favorite thing to do. This thing rolls great.
And I think Freiberger must be doing most of the pushing.
Who, what, when, where, why? Who? Steve Dulcich. So Dulcich is like one of my key enablers, and he's been grinding me to get a 68 or 69 Roadrunner to match his Rec Runner. Thing is, they were like 20 grand and such. So when Finnegan and I were on a road trip in the General Mayhem and stopped here at Performance Auto in Wyoming, I found what I needed. We're buying this one.
Dude, this has great
I
paint
would
on it.
totally have this. Which brings us to the what. This is a 1969 Plymouth Belvedere. This car's original 318 car with a 3 on the tree, so it was a stick. The thing is, it was so much cheaper than a Roadrunner, but it's the same car. You may not be aware that a Roadrunner is essentially just a high-performance Belvedere. Plymouth back then took their cheapest, lowest end, lightest weight, no-frills car, and they added bigger engines, bigger brakes, bigger torsion bars, sway bars, and some stickers and stripes and garbage, and called them a Roadrunner, and it was a huge, huge hit. The 1969 Roadrunner was the Motor Trend Car of the Year. I know you're dying to know, I paid $7,000 for this thing. Then the when, right now. The why, okay. I've been a Mopar guy probably since day one, since I was a teenager. And in more recent years, I've been fairly critical of the 426 Hemi. I think they're overpriced. I think they're super heavy. I think they don't make the torque that a wedge could. So I'm not a huge fan. But at the same time, the Mopar stroke in me has always wanted some kind of Hemi car that I could just turn the key and drive like it was nothing. And so that's what this car is gonna be. So recall that we had built the Hemi Gremmy together a long time ago. And we installed a 426 Hemi iron head motor, but then we broke a rocker arm on the Gremlin, had to abandon a road trip. That side. So that's when Finnegan and friends swiped the thing, brought it over to his place, built a new Hemi for it. A new Hemi that I had actually given him in trade when we were first building the Blasphemy 55 Chevy. And then that engine ended up getting fragged, and it was sitting in his place. He had Bostic Racing engines go through it. It makes 700 horsepower. It now lives in the Hemi Gremmy, which left me with the spare 426 kicking around. And that's why we're able to have that used Hemi ready to stab in this car. So in the next 5 days, we have to install a Hemi, a used A833 4-speed that I got from here at the yard, and a used Dana 60 that I bought from another friend. I think I thought of every possible part that we could use, because right here, right now, we are an hour from any auto parts store. So I got to build it with all the parts that I thought of, and of course, probably some scraps from this Mopar junkyard.
We've already made more progress today on this project than we made in the entire first day of that Mustang project in Washington.
Oh yeah, that was horrible.
We didn't get very far on day number 1. This is great.
Basically, the car needs engine, trans, drive shaft, rear end, rear suspension, cooling,
Everything that makes it go.
Right.
Yeah.
So do you want to go engine and trans first, or do you want to go rear axle first?
Well, it has a rear axle currently.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the last thing.
All right, so let's put the Hemi together.
Okay.
All right, that's step 1. Assemble Hemi.
Mike, you want to help me get the hood off?
Oh, yeah. Right when you are, sir.
Okay. Just hold up the front a little bit. Oh, wow, we just handled that like nothing.
It's pretty light, too.
Yeah.
Steve, can you tighten this around? There we go. Stop. That's it.
Okay.
Yep. Mint.
Oh, that doesn't go to a main cap. What does it go to?
There's a main cap right here. There's an angle bracket, but we're not using it. I'm changing the oil pan because I've learned my lesson so many times about like thrashing on dirt and corners without a road race pan. Okay. I think that's it, right? Okay. All right, I'm gonna need some pipe plugs. Bink. All right, oil pump next. There we go.
One of the things I want to do is modify the steering column. Now, this is a column shift car, so it has these arms here, which come off the bottom of the column and activate the transmission shifter. And they're just in the way when we're going to put that big Hemi in there. So I'm going to cut those off. It actually came out pretty good.
The 426 Hemi uses a different motor mount than the other big block V8s in the Chrysler line. The good news is that the K-member in the car is the same, be it a 318 or a big block. The thing is, the Hemi won't bolt to the big block K-member unless you've got this kit right here from Schumacher Creative Services. It is an adapter mount that allows the Hemi 3-bolt pattern to go onto that K-member. A normal 440 or 383 would have like cast-in ears that come off here. This has this instead. Now, the other thing you need to know about the Hemi is these 3 bolts right here are not blind. They go all the way through to the crankcase, so they will leak oil. So you do need to seal them a little bit.
All right, I hear good things happening.
It's the sound of a beer being cracked open, or what are we talking about here? What kind of good things? And I know we're gonna break this in properly for 200 or 300 miles before the first burnout or, drag race. So I'm gonna go the extra mile and wipe my handprints off of this. 80 to 120 grit surface finish, driving 750 miles on the highway. We don't need that kind of negativity here on Roadkill, so we're just gonna send it.
Liar.
We don't have our dowels in the back of this block.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's a good catch. Finnegan had the astute observation that the dowel pins were missing from the back of the block, and those are critical for locating the bell housing. And he probably knew that because you probably took them out. That's my guess.
Yeah?
So there's supposed to be a stack of big blocks over here. We're gonna go find it. Here's 440s. Well, I found a couple big block Chryslers here that have the parts that we need, including distributor hold down and dowel pins on the bell housing surface.
I have my feet down on terra firma. When it comes to taking out dowel pins, I don't live in illusion, I'm not trying to send a rocket to Mars. I know that they're gonna be stuck.
These are all big blocks.
And they're firma.
Now, if you had a small block, they go all the way through and you can hammer them.
Oh, this is working, Steve.
Oh, yeah.
You're a genius.
Attaboy.
Are you?
There you go.
Next one.
Ah,
Got it.
bingo.
Now we can put the engine in the car.
Like butter.
Right there.
Want a souvenir?
We have our new dowels in the block. We're gonna bolt the bell housing on with a couple bolts, and we're actually gonna test fit the transmission out here just to make sure everything's cool and that the splines will line up with the pilot bearing in there. And that way, hopefully we don't have to fight it as much once we get underneath the car.
This little ear right here. I used to say we're not very good at this, and that used to bother Freiberger. And now my opinion has changed. This is season 13. We are very good at this. You know how I know? Because last year we'd have got all excited and just thrown the Hemi in the car and then spent the next 4 hours on our backs finding out that, oh, hey, the bell housing doesn't go on. And when you try to put the headers on, they hit the bell housing. But not today, no. We're test fitting things. Perfect. Oh, yeah. We're good.
Cleared?
Yeah, let's try the other side. It clears it. Let's just slide the trans in and see if it goes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we just need to turn it.
Okay, it's not in the spline yet.
I think it's trying to, but it's stuck on the disc.
So what's going on here is that he's trying to mimic the struggle that we're gonna have underneath the car later by solving it now. The Hemi 4-speed is distinguished by an 18 spline input, and this has a 23. It's just the transmission that was available, so it's a little smaller. It's not technically correct, but we don't care.
You know, we're trying to test fit things and make sure that once it's in the car, we don't have a problem putting the transmission and mating it to the back of the motor. And sure enough, it does not want to go in there. It could be that our clutch disc is not perfectly in line with the back of the crank and the trans. It's out of alignment. The tool won't even go in now. So we need to loosen up the clutch.
Nice. We just did this on Finnegan's Daytona, and we know that with this oil pan, it won't go in with the clutch and flywheel because it'll hit the firewall. So we should remove it after all that trouble we just went through.
We spent so much effort getting the clutch perfectly aligned, and now it's got to come back off.
Oh, that disc is slippery.
This car is, at this moment, getting a Hemi for the very first time.
It is.
In a shop that's never had a Hemi in it before.
Yes.
That's what they said. Looking good.
Let's get the headers in.
Let's go halfway down first. Wow, that wants to go down really quickly.
They're gonna have to kick
Why don't you get this header in? This Hemi's 426 inches, and it has been built up a little bit. It started out as a Mopar crate engine. It's 10-to-1 compression. It has a small hydraulic roller cam in it. It's like 242 at 50, I think. And on our Engine Masters show, this thing made 560 horsepower. So it's not a killer, but it'll be fun.
We are real close to my motor mount.
Yeah, you're square over the motor mount. That header is gonna...
You've got it too far back.
If you go down, then that helps my situation.
All right, here comes down, very carefully.
So this isn't perfectly aligned because the screwdriver will go through it, but this bolt won't.
Coming up.
Is that engine tilting?
Yeah,
Or am I crushing the oil pan?
it's
Nah,
tilting.
It's tilting.
Let's go slow. Oof. Yikes. Now's when we find out how rusty this is underneath. Okay, this will go right on. Let's bolt it in. Okay, go.
Before we put this header in, let's put the flywheel and the clutch in.
This is disturbingly easy. I feel like something's about to go wrong.
Don't talk
David,
about it.
why would you say that?
Now we're going to install the clutch again after we test fit it outside of the car. This is a McLeod Street Extreme setup. I like it because it's got the ceramic pucks on both sides of the discs. And Steve and I have figured out that these withstand our abuse right out of the box better than like the typical friction material. Okay,
Good?
I think so. There we go. We're actually about to try and put the transmission in. We've been making incredible progress. The B-body actually uses a different cross member for a 4-speed than it does for a 3-speed or an automatic. So I had to order that on eBay. They didn't have one here at the yard.
Maybe a little on the tip, you know, just.
This thing's actually really rust-free. It's undercoated, which is a bummer to me, but it's not bad.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah,
Okay.
tail up.
It should go in. I don't know how we're looking left to right, but this thing should go in. The back of the trans has to come up a little bit.
There we go.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah.
Nailed it.
Is it all the way in?
It's real close. We just need to put bolts in it. Trans is in.
It's installed but not tightened. We still have a lot to do. but I'm concerned about the piece of wood that we put between the Hemi and a firewall. I hope it's not caving in my firewall right now.
Look, a Hemi and a Belvedere.
I know.
That's pretty sweet.
Right on there.
And
I'm just gonna take the chain off right now because I don't think we're gonna need it.
No.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say this was the most successful first day in the history of any roadkill shoot.
it was pretty incredible.
Like, wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was pretty amazing.
It's in the car.
Yeah. Day 2, we cranked it yesterday.
Yeah, we got so much done. Oh my God.
So, Steve, what's your plan for today?
Well, I mean, I think we have a whole bunch of stuff to do here at the back of the car.
Well, I think you guys are gonna mess with that, and I'm gonna go to the front and finish up bolting the headers in, bolting the trans in.
Ah! Stay.
That is 60 inches.
60. Okay, that sounds right.
58 and a half.
But then add the
But then we have to
rotor
add the
thickness.
rotor hats.
It's a 1/4 inch per side, so
So it's 59.
59. So it's an inch narrower.
It'll work.
Let's measure the perch width. 44 3/4.
Oh, these are way narrow. These are 35 and a half.
Well, we are in luck. We can weld a brand new set of perches like these on our new rear end without even removing the old ones, saving all kinds of time, which makes me happy.
Oh, wow, that was a good one.
Okay.
It's frightening.
All right, I'm just wrapping up the headers here. These are a 2 1/8 inch header. That's the primary size from TTI Exhaust. I got the chrome ones because they're cheaper than the ceramic coated ones, and they fit really well. However, you cannot fit a bigger torsion bar in this car without denting the header. Aside from that, mint.
Oh!
294 gear set in this thing.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that'd have done great burnouts.
Yes, it's a cool suspension company from back in the day. It made these big, long lift shackles that on this car were used just because the leaf springs were completely flat. But the added bonus of these is someone put them on upside down. This is supposed to go down so that you can pick your ride height with 3 different spring positions. We're just assuming that this gas tank's all full of crud, so we're replacing it. Okay, we gotta work the fill tube out of its grommet. Okay, you catching?
Got it.
Out. Hardly got anything in it.
Look at this, new leaf springs. We are replacing a worn out set that were virtually flat with the weight of the car sitting on them. These are aftermarket springs. These are from Mopar Performance. These are specifically for a car that has a Hemi in it. The passenger side of the car has one more leaf than the driver's side.
Here's a little problem that's going to delay putting in the rear end. We're going to weld these spring perches on, but the hole right here that indexes to the pin on the leaf spring is oversized. So we need to bush that down. We don't have any kind of tubing that's going to do that job. So I'm going to take this shank style lug nut, going to turn down the outside till it fits in that spring perch just perfectly. And then we'll take a 1/2 inch drill it out in the middle, and that'll fit the pin. And here we have the perfect adapter to make that spring perch work with our leaf spring. What we're doing right now is we're going to loosely bolt the rear end on. The spring perches are in place. And then once the U-bolts are in, we can just jack it up and the whole assembly will come up. We can mount the rear spring hangers. The question is, this is a race. Will I get my side done before Freiburger?
No. That's the spot. All right, tell me when to stop.
It's pointed down a little bit.
All right, now that we have it sort of mocked up in there and the axle is centered side to side, we're gonna put the wheels and tires on and put weight on the car so that we can then determine the pinion angle before we weld in the leaf spring perches.
The problem we have is the studs on our rear end are super long racing studs, and those take an open-ended lug nut. So I'm gonna take these shank-type lug nuts, because we can't buy replacements that are open-faced, and just grind the cap off the end of it so that they can screw all the way on the stud and tighten the wheels up. So, okay, that's all done.
This is it, the first time we're gonna set the car all the way down on the ground with the new wheels, tires, springs, and differential. We're gonna set it down and then figure out our pinion angle. Ooh, this is gonna be good.
Wow.
Not bad.
That is tucking a lot of tire.
Yeah. So this is a 15x8 with a 275/60/15 on the back. And the back spacing and stuff is weird because this rear end ends up being a little narrower than stock. We're actually gonna wanna space the wheels out. There's too much space here, but it looks like it doesn't sit too bad.
No, and the front will come down when you put the right size tire on it.
Today we had some slowdowns and it wasn't quite as much of a win as yesterday, but we do have the entire drivetrain in the car. Hemi, 4-speed and Dana 60. So we're gonna call it for the night. We'll be back tomorrow and this thing will be even more victorious. I do love it though. It's great.
Just getting better and better.
Yep, thank you guys for all the labor. Good morning. Big rain last night, more coming in over there. I'm out shopping. We realized that I neglected to order a fuel pump for the Hemi. I just need to find a 361, a 3D3, a 440, and find out if the fuel pump will oink or not. I'll show you that in a minute. Let's see if I can find one. This is my unit right here. Here we go. And there's the pump. Remember I mentioned to you that I'm gonna find out if it oinks? You gotta know if the diaphragm inside the thing is wasted or not. And if you move the lever and it sort of makes an oinking sound, then you're usually pretty good. That one is locked up solid. That's junk, okay? All right, well this one oink. Nah, this is gonna be frozen solid also. Yep, that's junk. Aha, found another one. Ugh. These are all rusted solid. Ugh. All right, I'm gonna try one more and then I'm gonna call it. That one's also locked up. I'm giving up, it's freezing. We're gonna go back and see if I can find a way to get a fuel pump brand new here this afternoon. Whoa. 440s, you failed me. I'm gonna install the drive shaft. Even though the rear U-joint is wrong, we have the fuel pump on order. We also have a conversion U-joint on order. However, I can mock it up in there so that we can set the car down and start looking at that pinion angle that we didn't do yesterday. And then we will zap the leaf spring pads in place. The other thing we're gonna find out right now is if the drive shaft that we ordered blind is the right length and, ooh, yes. We scored. I am just going to put the caps on this and hold that in, even though, so you can see the cup size is too small for the yoke.
Breakfast.
Okay, one down.
Oh, you're there, buddy. Done.
Now we're back to what we left behind yesterday, which is dropping it on the ground, putting weight on the car, setting the pinion angle, and then tacking the leaf spring pads in place. Go more forward. Try it. Okay, stop. I think that's rotating, right?
Well, they're rotated all right.
Yeah. Drive shaft 0. Yeah, I get 9 degrees on the yoke and I get 11 degrees on the web.
Oh, that's ballpark where we want it, right?
Probably. Okay, the drive shaft is 2.
2 down.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty much what they normally are, something like that.
Yep.
Dave and Steve got the pinion angle all dialed in on the rear end, which means I can now go under there and MIG weld just little tacks to hold the saddles to the axle tubes. If I throw one more tack on it, we could lift it up. With the wheels off, I might be able to weld the thing without taking the axle back out. The car is off the ground, in the air, the wheels are off, because I'm just gonna do all the welding here. We're not even gonna take the rear end out, because I think we're just all really excited to finish this thing and hear it roar to life.
I keep wanting to put it down and work on the engine, but we have a ton more to do underneath. Like the rear brakes, need the rotors cleaned, mount the calipers, hoses,
No.
hard lines.
Vice grip and the whole back of the brake system's done, bro.
It's possible.
I'll start coordinating getting all the braking system working in the back.
Okay.
I'm excited to get to the part where we work on the Hemi.
Yeah. We can make the Hemi run all we want, and the car's still not drivable without all this stuff, though.
Hey, the parts are in there. Hey, and the shoes are new.
It's all brand new. Leave it alone. That wasn't adjusted good. Or well. Like new, good enough. I mean, it's only got a Hemi for power. 10-inch brakes should be fine. The older Mopars came with left-handed lug nuts on the left-hand side of the car. The theory being, I guess, that the lug nuts wouldn't spin off with the rotation of the wheel. Jeeps did this too. I'm gonna change the drum on the driver's side to a drum from the passenger side so that I get regular lug nuts. Blech. I'll be changing to disc brakes soon enough on this thing.
Our used Dana 60 rear end came with this really nice Wilwood brake assembly. The only problem is it didn't come with all the hardware, so we're gonna get that tomorrow. Meanwhile, I've got everything mocked up. I've got the rotor in place, and I'm gonna mock up the caliper. Mike welded some tabs on the rear end because we're running flexible hose back here off the caliper that allows it to be removed and put back on without having to disconnect the hydraulic system. Then we're gonna plumb the hard lines, and all of this rear portion of the braking system will be all done.
All right, we've done everything we can underneath the car. Next, Hemi power. Yeah, we're gonna put dual quads on this thing. Oh, and then it hit again.
How in the world could it be hitting it, though? Yeah, can you go ahead and turn it, David?
Okay. Yep, I think.
Wow. The head of the ring gear is this part of the flywheel, and it's hitting the body of the starter. For the last half hour, we've been staring at this car going, why doesn't the engine want to turn over very easily? And I look up and I see that the body of the starter is actually hitting the flywheel. And I'm really hoping that when he moves this starter out of the way, that solves the whole problem.
Spin it.
Easy. Easy.
I think 3 easies.
Easy?
Yes.
That's it.
4 easies.
Easy.
We're fixed.
Yeah, so the engine is good now, but I feel something right there.
Yeah, it's still up
I can
against
feel
it.
it on the starter because I have my hand on it.
There.
Yeah, it just machined the flywheel with the starter body. So we just need to put a little chamfer on it.
Uh-huh.
And it should be good to go. I'll get a grinder. Woo! Starter's hitting the flywheel, that's no good. We need to shave the body of the starter down right where it's contacting the flywheel. We've got to take probably 3/16 of an inch worth of material off this thing so that it doesn't hit the flywheel anymore. So if you guys remember, this particular Hemi hasn't seen any action since the last time it was between the fenders of the Gremlin. And the reason is that we actually had a push rod, this one right here, pop out of the lifter, pop out of the rocker arm adjuster.
If you've got any kind of adjustable valve train, you can glance at the adjuster nuts and look at where the set screw is in relation to the nut. And look at all of these, how they're virtually flush, and then boom. You go to this one and you can see that that adjuster is backed way off, and you go, there's probably a problem here. And then you do this, oops. That's a disaster.
That rocker arm, the cup of the adjuster was wasted, so was the body of the rocker. So we bought a new one, and we need to install it, but first we need to install a new lash cap on top of the valve. You need to make sure the lash cap actually sits flat on top of the valve stem tip, because sometimes it can get stuck on the keeper in there. I'm gonna find out what our depth is in our little keeper there using a cotter pin, and I'm gonna mark the cotter pin with a very fine tip Sharpie. I'm gonna place the cotter pin into the bottom side of the lash cap. And then I'm gonna sit there and compare my mark. And that'll tell me, will this sit flat on the tip of the valve, or is this thing gonna bottom out on the keeper that's holding the retainer to the valve?
Mike is adjusting the preload on that one lifter where we removed the rocker arm. This thing has a hydraulic roller camshaft in it, which is unusual for me. And so what he's gonna do is rotate the push rod as he's tightening the adjuster until he just feels it a little bit dragging, and then he'll give it probably half a turn and then lock her down.
Done.
We're working on the engine now, and we're gonna finally make it look like a Hemi. I'm gonna drop the dual quad setup on this thing. This manifold is just like a production dual plane, except the carburetor pads are spread apart so that you can have Hollies on here instead of the Carter carburetors. Okay, got this all cleaned up and ready to go. And plunk.
Wow. That looked reckless, and yet it was as precise as could be.
Of course, Steve. That was a precision plonk.
Think this will clear the hood?
This car came with a column shift manual transmission, and the floor shift car came with this auxiliary hump and a hole cut into the floor pan. So we've got to add that component. I've got the floor marked. It had already been hacked out pretty roughly, so I've got to cut it out for shifter clearance. Then we'll weld this in, and we'll have converted this thing to a proper floor shift car.
One of the signatures of the Hemi engine is that the spark plug is at top dead center right between the two valves, and that means that the spark plug goes right down the middle of the valve cover, which means you need these tubes that go down here and seal it off, and the spark plug threads in at the bottom of the tube into the cylinder head. Honestly, mine are a little bit sketchy because these valve covers don't perfectly fit this valve train, and we've got 2 gaskets and a 1/4-inch steel spacer in there to make it seal. Goes right like pink, that.
Finnegan and I are making a new throttle bracket. I'm cutting, he's gonna weld and fab.
We're just fiddling with the small details. Finnegan just made a genius throttle cable and return spring setup. I got a fuel pump push rod with a bronze tip because of the billet camshaft. Oh, the guys from the Junkyard had a brand new fuel pump. Probably not what I would have chosen for myself, but hey, it's gonna make the Hemi run. That's all we're trying to do. What are you guys gonna do next?
Cross something off, hopefully. I feel like we did a lot this morning.
Yeah.
But I gotta be honest, there's not a lot on here to
No,
cross.
probably not. I'm about to put all sorts of grease on the fuel pump push rod so that it sticks up in its hole so I can put the fuel pump in. Ready? Bloop.
Well, right now Freiberger is finishing up the rear brake line, which caps off the entire brake system on the back half of the car. Dulcich is under the bottom of the car, hooking up a new Hurst shifter, and somehow I got sucked into the nightmare that is wiring the starter, which is behind the header, and I can't see anything. So I'll be over here, crying.
Can you adjust that one so it goes in there?
And first, second, third, fourth, reverse.
Our rear end takes a 1350 U-joint, which is kind of a big one, and the drive shaft was made with 7290s, which were the heavy-duty U-joints for a Mopar. But we got this combination joint at 7290 on one side, 1350 on the other. I'm gonna knock this old one out, and I'm gonna slam this one in using nothing but a hammer. Well, that just about installed itself. Now I'm gonna go put it in the car. That's it. Drive shaft completely done.
I think at some point in this car's life, it got in a fight with something much stronger than it was, and well, it bent the core support in a fashion that doesn't allow us to install a radiator. So I'm just gonna beat it into submission here, or I'm gonna swing and hit my thumb. It's not really working, but it's fun. I think I moved it.
That's it. There you go. It's actually tweaking it and straightening it. The radiator will probably go in now. I mean, it's still all tweaked, but it's gonna go. We're finally ready to get the radiator in here. Let me give you a couple tips about Mopar muscle car radiators. There's two sizes basically, a 22-inch core and a 26-inch core. This thing had a 318 engine in it originally and had the 22-inch core. We're gonna be putting a 26-inch core that is actually out of a C-body, which would be like a Town & Country or a full-size Polara. What you should do when you install the bigger radiator is cut this section out right here so that you got more airflow, but honestly, we're running out of time. We gotta get this thing going. So we're gonna drop the radiator in. Mike just drilled a hole and we're gonna bolt it in and it's gonna work even with the 22-inch opening. This is yet another come back and make it right later kind of moment.
This car is rapidly becoming one of my favorites.
Great. Those guys gave me this shroud off of this radiator. Man, this thing is gonna cool good.
I really have my fingers crossed that all the wiring on the car is still good, but one thing we didn't have was the ignition key. Now that might seem like an insurmountable problem, but we're at a wrecking yard with a whole bunch of Mopars, so I got a new ignition, or let's say an old ignition, with the key, and I got the old one out. All I've got left to do here is tighten up the bezel, and that installation is all done. It'll be a miracle if it works, but I'm gonna see if this will make the starter bark.
Whoa!
Wow!
Nice.
Freiburger.
Don't crank it long. There's no pipe plug in the back of the block. It'll
That's a total win.
full win. That means we can make this run. I have to like scab an MSD on here and we'll be good to fire it up after we plug that pipe plug. Wow, look at that. Actual coolant, or should I say antifreeze, because it freezes here in Wyoming, and this thing's gonna stay here for a little while. We're right now at the point of like rushed butchering. The wiring is a disaster, but it's functional. We just want to hear the thing run tonight. So I think we gotta do the antifreeze. It needs fluid in the transmission so we don't spin that dry.
Gas in the tank,
Gas in the tank,
turn the key.
that's it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be loud.
You might think this is full of sweet honey barbecue sauce, but it's actually premium high-octane gasoline. It's the perfect size to inject the gasoline right into the bowl without spilling a drop.
You got the extinguisher? Just.
When this backfires because the ignition's too far advanced, that's gotta be a big fire.
There we go.
That's a lot of gas.
Now, that's a moderate amount.
I'm ready to start it. How about you?
I'm
Well, we
pretty
have to
flammable
check
myself.
the pump shot.
It has it. I just checked it.
Oh, okay. Ready?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh! First try! Dude! Yes! Yay! That's all we needed to know. We wanted to be a little further ahead tonight, but hey, it's driving tomorrow.
We have a running 426 Hemi.
Dude, nice work, fellas.
Yep. Thank you guys for all that thrash. I mean, it's a little butch around the edges, but it's a perfect start.
I'm gonna sleep good tonight.
Yeah.
Me too.
Because we're gonna do burnouts tomorrow.
Yes, we are. This feels like our final major step. We have to make the clutch linkage work. Obviously, we already have the throwout bearing in there, but we need the clutch fork, we need the push rod, we need the Z-bar, we need the rod from the pedal to the Z-bar. It's gonna take a little fiddling.
What I think is going to be the last step here is putting in the Z-bar, which goes from the bell housing to the frame and activates all the clutch operation. What do you think, Mike?
I feel like your plan of using worn out parts to pivot on
Yes.
is the way to go, because the new ones don't fit.
They're too tight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wrestle this thing up in there.
There you go. Oh, smooth.
Yeah.
Like butter.
Ah, these offset washers are terrible. Shocks are on.
Battery's mounted. This will be pretty sweet if this fits.
I know. I do not have high hopes, but I do hope. And we attempt it. All right. We're gonna actually try and drive it.
Who gets to drive?
Well, who do you think?
Hemi. I'm totally content to watch it zoom by, I gotta
Me
be
too.
honest.
I'm now Hemi Dave. I am ready.
Let's go. First drive.
Well, we did it!
Yeah! Thanks, Austin. Nice work, Dalton. Nice work, Fabricator. I wonder when the last time this ran and went down a road was.
Some grandma bought this thing new and putted it around with a 318 and a 3-speed on the tree, and now it's a hot rod. There it is, my 1969 Plymouth Belvedere that is now loaded with a 426 Hemi, a 4-speed, and a Dana 60. I hope that I can actually live up to my dream of driving a Hemi car like it's nothing. Now, I realize not all of you have a spare Hemi sitting around, but here's what you need to do. Come up with some semblance of your dream car and just get some buddies and make it happen. Stack up the parts, assemble the car, make it run and drive, and you know what? It's gonna be rough around the edges. You're gonna need to tune it up. You're gonna have to fix the stance, but you will have a running, driving dream car, and that gives you the motivation to continue. Just like we do every time on Roadkill.